Hello everybody and welcome back to another not applicable Formula 1 video. I hope that you're well. I hope you're enjoying the winter break and that you're not missing Formula 1 too much. It's been an entire week since the 2021 season finished, and already I'm thinking about which races should I go back and watch, which highlights do I need to see, and which races am I going to watch in full. So I thought I'd break down the 2021 season for you into 5 different categories. That's all right. It's a tier list video. We're going from classic, which races are going to be talked about for years and years to come. They're the best races of the 2021 season. Then we've got just underneath, what a race. Probably not a classic. We might not talk about it forever, but still, what a race it was. We had them pretty good races, you know. I recommend you watch them in full, but maybe whilst you're doing something else at the same time. Highlights only. Let's just save ourselves some time. 5-10 minutes is the absolute maximum we want to be watching of this Grand Prix. And then, of course, never again, where you don't even want to watch the highlights. Just skip it. It's well worth just moving on with your life and never watching this race again. Let's start at the beginning with Bahrain. And it was a good start to the season, let's be fair. You know, it sort of had all the storylines that were yet to come. We had Hamilton and Verstappen going wheel to wheel. We had the track limits incidents with those two as well, where Verstappen took the lead but off the track and had to give it back to Hamilton. We had Norris and Leclerc doing really well, and they had a little bit of a battle. We had Tsunoda and Perez driving from the back with their new teams and the Honda engines. It was all right, actually. I'm going to put Bahrain in pretty good. I think it was pretty good. I think as a start to the season, it was very, very good. Obviously, those storylines hadn't quite progressed in the same way that we know they had now, but I'm going to put it in pretty good. Then we moved on to Imola. Imola was a wet race, and it had a little bit of everything. Had Lewis Hamilton hitting the wall, had Max Verstappen and Hamilton colliding in the first couple of corners as well. Had Bottas and Russell colliding, and then that red flag incident, which was really good talking point, considering those two were going for that Mercedes seat. Norris on the podium as well. I'm going to go for Imola as what a race. Well worth watching again. Probably not a classic in that we won't talk about it in seasons to come, but still a very, very good race and well worth watching if you didn't manage to see it live. Let's go for Portugal then. Portugal was interesting. We had Norris at the beginning making some really good moves. We had Giovinazzi and Kimi Räikkönen coming together in the Alfa Romeos, and that caused a safety car. We then have Verstappen overtaking Hamilton, but Hamilton came back later on. Hamilton wins. Bottas was on pole. It wasn't great. Like, it wasn't amazing. It was probably highlights only. I don't think it's never again, but it's definitely highlights only was Portugal. We then had Spain, which was definitely a never again. Like, not really too much happened. It all turned into, like, pit stop strategies, and Hamilton got a second stop. Nobody thought it was going to be a two-stopper. Couple of nice moves in the midfield, but let's be honest with you, Spain was just not worth watching over and over again. Let's put that in never again. I don't think you even need to watch the highlights of Spain. Monaco. Do we even need to talk about Monaco? Here you go. I'll show you the one thing that you need to see from the Monaco race. There we are, that's all. And now you never ever have to watch Monaco again. You know, we had Charles Leclerc obviously hitting the wall and not being able to start from pole. We had Bottas having the longest pit stop ever. But apart from that, Monaco was a bit drab, like literally no overtakes whatsoever on the track, and it was a bit boring. The cars could get nowhere near each other, and it was basically just a parade. But then we had Azerbaijan. So, like, you know, we had to have Monaco and Spain just to bring us down a level, because then we moved over to Baku, and my goodness me, what a race this turned out to be. Again, Leclerc was on pole, and then had a slow stop from the Mercedes, and Verstappen was able to undercut. Then it looked like Verstappen was going to go on to win really easily. Stroll hit the wall, Verstappen hit the wall with 2 different punctures. Hamilton obviously then looked like he was going for the lead. It was Sergio Perez on the restart. Hamilton with that magic brakes that ruined it all for him, and he just drove off and ended up coming in like 16th place. It had everything. It had punctures, red flags. Beautiful, beautiful race. Azerbaijan completely delivered. It is most definitely a classic. I mean, just look at the podium. Perez, Vettel, Gasly. Yes, please. More of that. Azerbaijan, you are excellent. Let's put you in an absolute classic from Azerbaijan. Then we moved on to France. France was I'm trying to think, what was France? France had, that strategy battle. Again, the undercut was just king. Everybody was trying to pit as early as possible, but without killing their tyres towards the end of the race. And again, it turned into a two-stopper where everyone thought it was going to be a one-stopper. Verstappen ended up doing the two-stop strategy, and the last sort of sprint from Verstappen was really, really good. I was going to say highlights only, but you know what? Because of that battle towards the end between Verstappen and Hamilton, and Verstappen obviously catching up slowly, I think it is worth watching again. I'm going to put France, maybe controversially, because France is not a good track, into pretty good. I think it was a pretty good race. I enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed it. Then we had the back-to-back races in Austria, obviously headed to the Red Bull Ring, and Honda and AlphaTauri also put together lots and lots of media for it. Styria was the first one, and Styria looked good because it was, George Russell might have got his first points in a Williams. We obviously ended up seeing that later on in the season. We had, what else happened? Russell was getting points. Was that it? Some nice overtakes. Leclerc, very entertaining. I'm going to put Styria in highlights only. I can't remember off the top of my head anything too crazy happening, and therefore I'm going to put Styria in highlights only. Maybe I'm mixing it up with Austria though, because Austria was the one where we had Perez and Norris battling early, and obviously Perez was dipped into the gravel trap, and then we had the same thing where Perez dipped Leclerc into the gravel trap 2 times in a row, and then Norris and Hamilton battling when the Mercedes was damaged, and Sainz with a really nice drive. No, I'm not getting this wrong. Austria was so much better because it had that Norris podium, and we know what, we're biased here. We love Lando Norris. Norris was on the podium. Austria, it was pretty good. It was pretty damn good. I'm pretty sure Styria was the boring one and Austria was the much better one. So I'm going to say Austria, pretty good. Then we moved on to Silverstone, Great Britain. Obviously, with this one, Lewis Hamilton taking the win after a very controversial race. We had that coming together, and up until that point, it was incredible. Even if you just go back and watch that first lap, where Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen are wheel to wheel, literally every single corner until they collide. We obviously had the first ever sprint race. We had an incredible drive from Leclerc. He should have probably won that race, but with 2 laps left to go, Lewis Hamilton was able to catch him and make sure that he got the win. I'm going to put Great Britain in what a race. I think Silverstone delivered. Yes, it would have maybe been a better race if Verstappen had been, all the way to the end. It's close to a classic. I think if Verstappen had continued on in the race in some way and we maybe saw them battle for a little bit longer, it would be up there. But because Verstappen hit the wall, it then looked like, Lewis Hamilton was guaranteed the win from that point. I'm going to put it in what a race. And then the final race before the summer break was in Hungary. And again, what more can I say about Hungary? Bottas and Stroll go bowling at the beginning. We have 6 different DNFs. We have Hamilton starting the race alone. That image of just Hamilton on the intermediate tyres while everybody else goes into the pits will live in my memory forever. We obviously had Ocon and Vettel battling all race for the win, and Hamilton being blocked off by Alonso. Alonso putting in the wall of Alonso, the defensive performance of a lifetime. Yes, please, more of that. The Hungaroring most definitely delivered. Then we had the summer break, and let's have a summer break for ourselves, because my goodness me, we've had quite a few decent races in that first half of the season. But in my opinion, the second half of the season was even better. And, it started with an absolute bang, didn't it? No, it did not. It started with probably the worst race of the season. It was Spa. We saw 4 laps of racing. George Russell was on the podium. And, that was it. Lando Norris qualifying was pretty spectacular, but the race itself, no, never again. Never, ever, ever again. We then moved on to Zandvoort, the home Grand Prix of Max Verstappen, our eventual 2021 world champion. And this was the point where, he just hit some form, didn't he? Netherlands, and then actually, to be fair, Monza didn't go great afterwards. But we're talking about Netherlands, and I think, you know what? You should probably watch Netherlands just for the highlights, just to see those Dutch fans with Max Verstappen, the walls of orange that we ended up seeing. Well worth your time, well worth a watch, just for the highlights to see those things. Then we moved on to Monza, and my goodness me, yes, I'm a McLaren fan, but you know what? Monza always delivers, but this one just absolutely took the cake. It was an amazing race. We had the title crash. We had Max Verstappen's car literally, jumping over the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. We had the McLaren 1-2. We had Bottas and Perez and Leclerc all battling for third place. Ricciardo taking the victory, Lando Norris second on the podium. Yes, please. Every single year we have to go to Monza, and every single year I want a race just like this one. It was an absolute classic. Monza delivered. Yes, please. Then we moved over to Russia, and again, I'm going to put Russia in at a classic. It was such a good race. Yes, I guess with my McLaren hat on, it was a little bit disappointing. We obviously had Norris, Sainz and Russell as our front three at the beginning of the race. What on earth was going on there? We had Alonso Gate, where Alonso just completely missed the second corner of the Grand Prix and went around the bollard, but went around the bollard at full speed. We had Hamilton in the pack, Verstappen starting from the back. We had Norris and Hamilton battling, and then the rain fell at the end, and Hamilton's 100th win as well. It's definitely a classic. It's going to go down as one of those races we watch over and over and over again. And every single time I'm going to cry because Lando Norris just needed to go onto the intermediate tyres a little bit earlier, please. Every single time, just a couple of laps earlier, Lando Norris, and you'd have won that race and we'd have all been so much happier. Then we had Turkey on our hands, and Turkey again feels like one of those races where you only really need to see it because of this livery here. This livery from Red Bull is probably up there with the McLaren Red Bull in Monaco, but I think that was about it. What else happened in Turkey? It was another wet race, but then Bottas kind of ran away from it all, and nothing really happened of too much note. Again, I'm going to go Turkey in highlights only. I think it's worth watching because it never quite dried up enough for it to go onto softer tyres. Obviously, Vettel tried to go onto the mediums at one point and just completely ended up spinning around and went back onto the intermediate straight away. If it would have just dried up that little bit more, it would probably go in pretty good. But it never quite had that twist in the tail. And because it never quite dried up enough, I'm going to put it in highlights only. It's good for the suspense of like, oh, will it dry up enough? But knowing that it doesn't, it goes in highlights only. Then we had USA after Turkey, didn't we? The home Grand Prix of Daniel Ricciardo. Apparently, even though he is Australian, he took the US Grand Prix to his heart, I think. We had Hamilton versus both of the Red Bulls. We had Ferrari and McLaren going wheel to wheel. And this was sort of the start of the could Ferrari catch McLaren in the Constructors? Could Norris be caught by the Ferraris in the Drivers' Championship? This is when those storylines started to come to fruition. We had Raikkonen versus Alonso versus Giovinazzi. It was really good, actually. It ends with Hamilton obviously gaining, but he didn't quite have enough, did he? So I think USA goes in what a race. I think it could have been a classic had Lewis Hamilton just had, maybe like 2 more laps. Lewis Hamilton had 2 more laps in him and the race was 2 laps longer. Could have possibly been a classic, but I'm going to go with what a race for USA. Then we moved on to Mexico. And again, Mexico was one of those races that has a similar feel to the Netherlands, has a similar feel to Zandvoort in that it's probably worth watching the highlights just to see Checo in the stadium at the end on the podium and the crowd going absolutely wild. So I'm going to go Mexico in highlights only. And mainly just because as much as I think that the stadium does ruin the race, I think that final sector in Mexico is a bit rubbish. Seeing Checo in front of the Mexican fans was wonderful, and we just want to see those pictures over and over again. We just want to see those highlights over and over again. Then we moved on to Brazil, and Brazil was, just Brazil. Brazil, again, similar to Monza, just always seems to deliver a wonderful race. And this weekend had everything. The rear wing controversy, Hamilton being disqualified from qualifying, starting from 20th place. We then had the sprint, and Hamilton in the sprint, obviously just gaining on everybody. And then Hamilton gaining increasingly in the race as well. Went from 20th to 1st over the course of the sprint and the race. Yeah, it's an absolute classic. Again, This is where that storyline of will Hamilton be world champion, will Max Verstappen be world champion sort of started to come back into fruition. Because after Mexico, everyone was like, you know what, if Verstappen wins in Brazil, it's pretty much over and done with. Hamilton came back with the win. Then we started thinking, maybe it's not all over yet. And as we know, it definitely was not all over until literally the final race of the season. We then moved to Qatar, and it was a mixed grid because of the various penalties that people picked up, and that really added to the Grand Prix. Overtakes all the way down the grid, tyres giving up. I'm worried though that, we had the controversy with the popped tyres and all of that kind of overshadowed some of the racing a little bit. Pierre Gasly as well losing his front wing because of some of the track limits. I'm gonna put Qatar. Alonso podium though. Alonso podium was really, really good. I'm gonna put Qatar in pretty good, just because I don't think it's quite the level of Imola, Great Britain, USA, but it's probably around the same level as like Bahrain, Austria. Yeah, I think that's about right. I think Qatar goes in there. The final two races of the season then. Saudi Arabia, the first race in Jeddah, street race, under the lights, the walls closing in on the cars, safety cars, red flags, the deal or no deal moment between Red Bull and the guys on the pit wall. Oh my goodness me. We had Ocon leading the race at one point, Hamilton and Verstappen going wheel to wheel throughout. We had Hamilton and Verstappen colliding. Obviously the whole brake check incident. Was it a brake check? Wasn't it a brake check? It was wheel to wheel. It was so exciting. It was probably the best race of the season. I can't not put Saudi Arabia in an absolute classic. I think thinking back on it, and maybe there's a bit of recency bias in there, I think Saudi Arabia was the best race, just for storyline, talking points, all of that good stuff. And then finally, Abu Dhabi was our final race of the season. The finale, the title decider. We had Perez holding up Hamilton, which was immense. And of course, the chaos and controversy at the end as well. Let's put Abu Dhabi in what a race. I don't think it's quite up there with the likes of Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Russia. I know it's got the storyline. I know it's got the, title rivals coming in on the same points, obviously the incidents between them on lap 1 and then on lap 50 or whatever it was, 55 at the end of the Grand Prix as well. There was lots to enjoy about Abu Dhabi, but I don't think it was quite like the race that everybody wanted, because actually the middle portion between Hamilton and Verstappen going wheel to wheel at the beginning and then Perez holding up Hamilton in the sort of chunk in the middle, and then the incident with the red flag or safety car, possible red flag sort of stuff at the end. Yeah, I think it was a very boring race, but had some really nice bookends and a really nice middle chapter with Perez. So I'm going to put it in what a race. But that is my definitive list of the 2021 season. Have I made a mistake anywhere? Have I, put a race in the wrong place in your opinion? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, I'll leave a link to this tier list so you can put together your own from the season as well. Let me know your thoughts. Send me a little picture of it on Instagram, on Twitter. Let me know your thoughts compared to mine. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you next time.